Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another supplemental, and today we're tackling yet another totally not controversial topic, that being the Tardigrades lawsuit. Just like the Axonar thing I've done a video on previously, this is a topic which I feel like has been somewhat hijacked to sell a narrative to a specific subset of Trek fans, and the actual events have been distorted in many circles or framed a certain way to further push a lot of toxicity in Star Trek fan discourse. So, as a quick refresher, or for those unfamiliar, way back in 2018, after Star Trek Discovery had aired its first season, an Egyptian video game developer named Anas Abdin started a lawsuit with CBS over supposed copyright infringement. He believed Discovery had plagiarized his then unreleased video game, which was called Tardigrades. Now, if you've seen the show, you'll know there were a few episodes surrounding an alien tardigrade which could travel through space. Abdin's game also featured tardigrades who could travel through space. Abdin's game also featured a number of characters who resembled characters in Star Trek Discovery. Now, at first glance, this seems pretty damning, but when this story first broke, a lot of articles and industry pieces about the lawsuit stated Abdin's chances of successfully suing CBS were slim to none, and by 2019 the case was dismissed, with the judge ruling that the series and video game were not substantially similar as a matter of law. Abdin tried to appeal this ruling, but it was upheld. Now, before I go any further, I want to make this absolutely crystal clear. This video is not designed to shit on Anas Abdin or try to make out that he's a bad guy. I believe he was absolutely genuine in his belief that Discovery had ripped him off. I also believe him when he said he tried to get in contact with CBS beforehand, but he was brushed off. I totally believe that as well. And, for God's sake, the dude is a solo video game developer who basically does this as a hobby, something which requires an incredible amount of time and effort and work and dedication, technical skills and artistic talent. I can really sympathize with him putting in all this work and then seeing something which looks like it ripped you off, and how that must feel. The most recent blog entry I could find by Abdin is honestly kind of heartbreaking to read, and I hope if he doesn't finish Tardigrades, he gets another project going at some point, and I hope all those who supported him in this lawsuit support him with whatever he does next, because the guy deserves it, honestly. But ultimately, I don't think he was correct in believing that Star Trek Discovery had ripped off his game. As I said, at first glance, I see where Abdin and a lot of others are coming from, but there are several important reasons why this lawsuit has been dismissed. So, first of all, a timeline should be established here. Anas Abdin first started posting videos and blog posts about his game in 2014. Star Trek Discovery was announced in 2015 and came out in 2017. So CBS had plenty of time to see these posts and lift ideas, right? Well, not really. When it comes to projects like Star Trek Discovery and a brand as big as Star Trek, the wheels to get this all moving start way in advance of the public announcement. Discovery is a flagship show for CBS All Access, after all, which has now become Paramount Plus, and was designed to launch several spin-offs to begin with. Projects of this size start developing many years before release or even announcement. Considering how much money was on the line here, I think it's more likely Discovery was in development way before Abdin ever posted anything about his game. But I will admit that's mostly speculation on my part, but I do think it's extremely unlikely anyone at CBS saw Abdin's posts and then started developing a new Star Trek show from that. Now, what about the Tardigrades themselves? Both the show and the movie have big blue tardigrades who travel in space. Clearly Discovery ripped that idea off, right? Well, not really, no. A big reason this case wasn't successful was because of how copyright law works. You can't actually copyright ideas, you can only really copyright expressions of ideas. If your story has a spaceship, you can't then sue another writer for also writing a story with a spaceship, because spaceships are real things and in other sci-fi properties and you didn't create them. However, if you create a spaceship which looks like this, and someone else creates a show with a ship looking like this, that is grounds to sue because this is a unique design which you invented. That's why tardigrades aren't protectable, because they exist in real life, and their ability to survive in space is actually a scientific fact. This fact was widely shared in a bunch of articles a while ago. In fact, if you type into Google tardigrades in space, you can still find the stories because, it makes a good headline. It's one of those science stories which is easily shareable and makes a really eye-catching headline, like the alien octopuses thing and the Hadron Collider making a black hole, which isn't true, by the way. But it's that kind of thing. So I think it's more than likely that Abdin and the Discovery team just both saw these articles and were both inspired by these same sources. But what about the method of space travel? In the game, the tardigrades seem to wrap around people like a big hug and teleport them to somewhere else in the galaxy. In Discovery, although there is some quantum entanglement involved, which sort of looks like teleportation, the tardigrade, which is named Ripper, is hooked up to a device and essentially used as more of a navigation computer rather than the actual method used to travel anywhere. Now, the hugging would be a protectable element under copyright law, and in fact that was cited in the lawsuit, or at least the appeal, but Discovery didn't do that. The tardigrade in Discovery is also a named character and a central part of a story, but from what we can gather from the video game, that's not the case for these unnamed tardigrades. So when it comes to the tardigrade comparison, there is only one protectable element there, which is the hugging, and Discovery didn't even use that. Really, it just looks like this was a big coincidence that there are tardigrades in both stories. So with the tardigrades out of the way, what about the other big point of comparison, the characters? Tardigrades features several characters who look very similar to several Discovery characters. So why was this dismissed? Again, it goes back to that protectable elements thing. You cannot copyright physical traits or even character traits. Skin tone, hair color, sexual orientation, emotional state, these aren't protectable things. Once again, I think this is just another coincidence, but one which just makes sense based on Star Trek's legacy as a franchise. Star Trek, after all, is known for being progressive, and being progressive with its casting specifically. Brian Fuller has even brought up Nichelle Nichols and the legacy of Uhura when he created Michael Burnham. So I just think it makes sense that Discovery has a diverse cast just like Tardigrades, and has an LGBTQ relationship in there. It just makes sense for Star Trek. So if you can't copyright physical or character traits, what about the storyline? Are the storylines similar? And this is where things get foggy, because we don't really know what the storyline of Tardigrades the video game is. We know it's a point-and-click adventure game, and there's space travel using tardigrades, but not much else. And this is another reason why the case was ultimately dismissed. There was no demonstration that Star Trek Discovery had a similar story to the video game. The appeals court stated both properties weren't similar enough in, quote, total concept and feel, which is quite important in these things. When independently comparing the two, the appeals court found that, quote, Discovery builds on decades of consistent Star Trek plotlines, themes, and stories, while Tardigrades' total concept and feel is unclear. So beyond the unprotectable elements, the stock tropes and ideas inherent within sci-fi as a genre, or elements based on real scientific fact, there's just nothing to really conclusively illustrate or even prove that Star Trek Discovery is a rip-off of Tardigrades, or rather I should say, the 3 episodes out of the 42 episodes which currently exist of Star Trek Discovery ripped off Tardigrades. So after all of this, I think it's pretty clear this lawsuit will not be successfully appealed. I know that must feel awful for Anas Abdin, and in the blog posts I read, he feels like he shouldn't even bother finishing the game because he feels like what he wanted to do was already done by someone else. It's a horrible feeling, I know, but pursuing more appeals and lawsuits just won't accomplish anything. I don't know if Abdin will ever see this video, probably not, but if you're someone who supported him and supported his game, then I think he should be encouraged to continue creating, whether it be the same game or not. From what I've seen, the dude clearly has a knack for this kind of thing, and I think his energy would be better spent getting back into that creative work. Harping on this open and shut case just helps no one. I say this sincerely, but Anas Abdin, I wish you all the best. Cornflakes Admit Milch asks, do you think Star Trek will once again be what it used to be? This is kind of a vague question, but if you mean will Star Trek be like it was in the 90s, Probably not, and I don't think it should be. One of the things I like about modern Star Trek is that it's doing something new. It's taking some big gambles and trying to shake up the formula. Those gambles don't always pay off, of course, but I appreciate the effort in trying something new. After all, a big reason Star Trek ended up going away for a while was because of franchise fatigue. It got stuck in its ways and wasn't impressive to audiences anymore. If I wanted to see so-called classic Star Trek of the 90s, I've got hundreds of episodes of that to watch already. If you're asking if I think it'll be as good as previous Star Trek, well, that's up to you. Personally, I think Discovery and Picard have easily matched the quality of something like Voyager and Enterprise, and had occasional flashes of matching TNG in the original series. Anything as good as DS9 though? No, but then again I think that's the best one, so most Star Trek doesn't match the heights of Deep Space Nine in my opinion. But who knows, after these modern Star Trek shows have all wrapped up, maybe that'll change. I'm open-minded about it. Thank you for watching. If you like these videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my new uploads. If you want to help the channel grow, join my patrons or my YouTube members, where you can see videos early as well as some other exclusive content. Speaking of which, I'd like to quickly thank all of my patrons and members who are now appearing on screen. Have a good one, and as always, live long and prosper.